It is. Here we are. Welcome. It's Rosh Hashanah, actually. That's why we have one absence from the show, but I guess the power trio here on the Monday Night Conversion. So, as always, we've got Gladys. How are you doing, Gladys?
Oh, just peachy. Happy Rosh Hashanah, Dan, and all who celebrate it.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess pulling double duty tonight, we have Dr. Discord Dan to discuss various topics.
Well, first of all, I want to wish everyone out there a happy Rosh Hashanah, and happy Rosh Hashanah to Dan and his family. And yes, I will be playing the role of Dan, and I will be playing the role of myself, Dr. James Ferretti, the Fantasy Sports Doc. And we have lots of injuries to go over.
Oh my God.
First and foremost, happy Rosh Hashanah to Dan and his family and everyone who celebrates. And good to see you guys for week 3. It feels like a real NFL season now that we are waist deep in carnage. At least for me, we're waist deep in carnage, thanks to the week 3 injuries. So it was pretty brutal.
We wouldn't have it any other way, right? That's what we're here to talk about, injuries a lot. We'll obviously preview the Monday night game between the Giants and Cowboys. A little unfortunate Dan can't be here to rep his Giants. I guess Dan's wearing blue. This is blue. I mean, it looks dark, but so yeah, we're kind of repping the big blue a little bit for him. But yeah, we'll get to that Cowboys Giants game in a bit. But of course, want to thank everyone who will join us. I know Mr. Scampers is already in here. And of course, you can comment on the Going for Two Live YouTube page. So go to, on YouTube, just search up Going for Two Live. Should bring you to that channel, subscribe, and you can join us in the chat. You can also join us on Twitch and Facebook for comments. If you're on Twitter, you can see the video, but we won't be able to see your comments, unfortunately. So if you do want to interact with us and have any questions for anyone here, feel free to, again, head over to the Going for Two Live YouTube page. And I know, Doc, you've got quite an injury collection going on Discord as well. But yeah, always injury talk is the main topic of discussion on this show. So I know what we've been doing, or what we kind of plan to do this year, is like one big discussion about a player, and then we'll kind of go rapid fire from there, see how much time permits to talk about those other players. But the one, I guess, really, there's quite a lot about the Saints this week, and that's kind of where we're going to start, but specifically with Jameis Winston and a transverse fracture in his back. Hope I didn't transverse the language to mess that up too badly. But Doc, what I guess there's tons of questions here about this. So first off, what is a transverse fracture? And then what is the transverse process is another question that's being asked in Discord. So go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say welcome to Mr. Scampers. Thanks for joining us. And thank you for the compliment on the Dan impression. So I'll try to describe this without getting too far into the weeds, and I'll give a little bit of historical context for everyone's benefit. If you think about the spine and the vertebral column, the bones that make up the spine, and the reason they're so important is not just because that's part of what makes up the skeleton and keeps us upright, keeps our head where it's supposed to be, keeps our pelvis and our legs attached, and keeps things moving the way that they're supposed to be. But there's also a portion on the back of the spine where the spinal cord runs, which is the big column of nerves that supplies nerves to all parts of the body. And obviously you don't want to damage that. And that's always the concern with a spinal injury is the spinal cord going to be affected? Because not only can you have the bony injury and all the issues related to that, but if you injure the nerves, then there's a whole bunch of other worse issues that come from that. So if you think about the very back of the vertebral body, or the bone of the vertebral column, it actually is shaped like a T. So there's the spinal cord is kind of in front. There's a T-shaped area that's in the back, and you kind of have one part that's sticking out. And if you kind of run your fingers down your back, you can feel that part. That's the spinous process, the part that's sticking out directly behind us. The transverse processes come off to the sides, and they're perpendicular. So the good news with a transverse process fracture is that they're not really near anything that we think is really important, like the nerves or the spinal cord or anything like that. So if you break the transverse process, that's actually the part of the spine which is least likely to result in some other injury to an additional structure. So that all being said, Jameis Winston has 4 levels of transverse process fractures that are broken. But to give you some historical context, I don't know if you guys remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, Cam Newton, before he had his time in New England when he was still with Carolina, he actually got into a car accident. Right. It was pretty bad. He rolled over his car, and everybody was kind of fearing the worst. And it turned out that he fractured his spine, but he fractured his transverse processes. And he either missed either 1 week or he didn't miss a week.
I was going to say, I thought it was
crazy.
just 1 week. Like I thought one game, and then he was like, I think it was 10 days after the accident, he was out in the football field again. So
yeah, he was like he really was like Superman. It was just like he broke his spine and he played like a week later, and we're like, oh my God, like who is this guy? So that's one example. And another example, maybe even a better one, is Tony Romo had, going even further back, had some transverse process fractures and played through that and was fine. I think same thing. He missed a week, maybe 2, and wasn't affected by it. And then subsequently later to that, he had the injury to his spine where he was kind of horse collared and pulled down. And he didn't break the transverse process. He broke the actual spinal column, which is the big thick bone in the front. And that's what prompted him to retire and open the door for Dak Prescott to take over and started the Dak Prescott era in Dallas. So 2 spinal injuries with Tony Romo, 1, the transverse process fracture injuries, which were not bad. And then subsequently having the column fractures of the main part of the vertebral body, which led to his retirement.
So 2 questions from the co-hosts. I guess first will be Dan's, which he's chiming in. And the B League says, Doc, can you please show us how you fracture your transverse process by tearing a Post-it note? Kind of reference to something a couple weeks ago that Doc showed.
You're gonna have to go back and review that one from week 1 if you want that. I think that display is gonna live in infamy, but I still remain proud of that audio visual demonstration to this day.
Yeah, so, that's legendary, of course.
As you should.
Yeah, just like proud of the book that Gladys is showing off in the corner of her screen. But so I guess 2 questions. I guess one's more of an observation with Romo. He ended up playing later that season, but like he was the backup. And I think he played 1 game where he came in and they had already clinched the playoffs. So they benched Dak. Romo started the game, and even then he didn't even finish the game. Like he played like 1 series, threw a touchdown, and then okay, that's your send off, and then it was probably Cooper Rush or whoever was the 3rd string that took up the after that. So like essentially Romo never played competitive football again, basically because of that injury. So I guess the one concern would be Matthew Stafford, or not concern, but I guess comparison, because he had some back issues a couple of years ago back when he was in Detroit. Do you remember what that was? Was that also a transverse fracture? Is that why that's maybe not affecting Stafford now? Like we haven't heard anything back-wise from him at all last year. This year it's really just the elbow. So
yeah, it's really a good question. I'm gonna actually look it up while we're talking about other stuff, because I don't remember. That's usually I got a pretty good Rolodex for these type of things, but I don't remember anything about it. So maybe it was transverse process fractures, but we'll see what the comparison is. The bottom line is with Jameis Winston is he was able to play through this, and it's painful, but it's not really dangerous as far as like risk of doing any further damage, which is why these guys can kind of get numbed up and get some anti-inflammatory meds and kind of go out there and gut it out. And he's also dealing with an ankle injury, which is probably even more concerning than his back injury, believe it or not. Altogether, these are probably limiting him, but I expect him to continue to gut it out and, keep doing whatever he's doing as long as he can. So it's not something that I'm really worried about, that all of a sudden something terrible is going to happen and he's going to be out. I think pretty much what we've seen from him is what we can kind of expect going forward. And as far as the transverse process fractures, they kind of like heal and seal themselves off after a couple of weeks, and then they either kind of reattach, or sometimes there's just like a free piece of bone that's just kind of hanging out, not attached to anything. But the nerve endings are sealed off and it doesn't hurt anymore. So it just essentially becomes as if nothing happened. So
like you're saying, sorry, go ahead, Gladys.
Yeah.
So this might be like a stupid question, but their next game is in London. So he has that enormously long plane ride.
Yeah.
You don't think that's going to affect him? Like, I know I sit in a plane for like an hour, I'm like,
no, I get it. I really don't think so, because I think it's really pain tolerance. And I think when we talk about pain tolerance for us, like, normal human beings, like football players are on a completely different level. And if I had to hazard a guess, I think they would have some place for him to either recline or lay down or do something to kind of take the pressure off, to put extra padding on it so he's not, super uncomfortable. Because look at it this way, like he has to sleep, right? So I don't know how he's sleeping, but he's probably sleeping on the other side or sleeping in a way that's not affected. So I'm not really worried about his plane ride so much. I think he's just going to do what he does. Like when he goes out and plays in a football game, he's just going to find a way to gut it out and the plane ride's not going to be the determiner of whether or not he's able to go out there and play.
I don't think that was a stupid question at all, Gladys, because it
I think it
does
was a great
actually bring up
question,
a good
actually.
point. So
You really had to
thanks
think
for
about
clarifying that, though. Yeah, so Jeff, no, there's no Dan tonight, and we're gonna all have to carry up and do our best Dan impersonation. So this is mine. Come on, Jeff, you're charging going for two. You don't even know I'm not here. Like, what are you doing, man? That's what I got. Doc does the better, I think. But
that's not bad. That's not bad.
And yes, and it's funny because when Doc said this, I thought the exact same thing, Jeff. Like, Winston just keep doing what he does, just huck it and throw in interceptions.
That's it.
Now, like, I know one of those was an interception at the end when you're throwing a Hail Mary from your own end zone when there's like 20 seconds left. Like, I can forgive him for that because it's probably the right move anyway. Like, you need multiple Hail Marys to have a chance, so you got to kind of do that anyway. Like, even on first down. But yeah, it obviously wasn't his only interception. And yeah, to answer the question, he's probably a lot of drugs. Winston's probably sleeping with a lot of drugs. But yes. Now, Doc, you want to look up the Stafford transfers process? It seems like Mr. Scampers thinks that that's what it was.
Okay.
But do have a question here that we'll get to before we get to the rest of the injuries. Do I trade away Naji Harris for Fournette and Gainwell? And so, Doc, I don't know if you want to use this time to look up.
Yeah, I will, Gladys.
Because I know what you're going to say. You're talking about, like, and we talked about this week one, right? Two weeks ago, the Naji Harris Liz Frank strain as kind of a ticking time bomb. So I'm pretty sure Doc would say yes. I know he loves Gainwell more than the consensus does as well. So for him, he probably actually doesn't view Naji to Fournette as a downgrade. In fact, he probably wants to get off of Naji for Fournette. And so the like free Gainwell, perfect. So I know Doc's already going to say yes. What do you think, though, Gladys?
I would do it 1 for 2, and the 2 that you're getting are actually quite good. And Naji is hampered in an offense that sucks, plainly. And so once Evans and Godwin come back, that offense is going to start. I would do it. Yes, Seahawks 33. Do it. Do it now. Hit it.
Dynasty or redraft is my only question.
Oh.
Well,
yeah,
even
I don't care.
Even the idea of dynasty, I would get the hesitation of going from Naji to Fournette in dynasty from the age perspective, right? Like, I mean, you've got what, like 5 years of draft difference, like in terms of when they were drafted. So like all that extra wear and tear, you got more years with Naji, especially in a dynasty league. You can kind of think this might be the worst that it gets, having to play this whole season with this injury in an offense that looks so bad now that we don't think it could possibly get worse in terms of an offensive line. Who knows, though? We've seen it's the NFL, right? The Chiefs lost to the Colts. We have no idea what the NFL is, right? Anything can happen. But I think the idea of Gainwell and Naji being the same draft class, that you're at least getting a young asset back, and like it might be a good thing from a win now perspective that Fournette may outscore Naji the rest of the season, but you still got that future kind of investment in Gainwell long term. So I kind of think I would do this trade no matter what the format. More hesitant in dynasty, but I think redraft it's a smash. I know, again, one of my salary cap contract leagues, I've got Naji Harris, and this week I'm going to kind of make it my mission to try and see what other cheap running backs on, because he's on a rookie contract, but I noticed like Chase Edmonds is on a cheap contract that almost mimics a rookie contract. So like stuff like that, like I'm going to look for players like that, or I'm going to see if I can get Javonte Williams perhaps. Like I'm going to actively try and pivot off of Naji in the one league I have him in. So Seahawks 33, if you can get this deal done, I think it's great. This deal or any structure, this type of deal to get 2 running backs like this. Gainwell's seems like he's the main backup for the Eagles, and even if he's the third string, they run a big committee. So an injury to Miles Sanders, Gainwell could suddenly get huge workload. So yeah, love it. Doc, any luck on Stafford? As lucky as Stafford was with his landing spot last year.
Yeah, it turns out it was transverse process fractures. I think he had some other stuff that was going on because it looked like he missed a decent amount of time back in 2019. But he did have transverse process fractures in November, so that's what it was.
So yeah, so I think with Jameis Winston, I mean, there were a few questions asked through the Discord that all kind of had to do with it. I think you kind of went through all the questions really well. How can someone manage it? The QBs with recent history, restrictions. It seems like you were saying, the ankle injury might almost restrict his throwing motion more than the back injury. So to fantasy wise, like it seems like the back issue really isn't affecting at all his upside.
Yeah,
he still can put up touchdowns. Yeah, the interceptions will be there, but still like a high volatile but high ceiling fantasy option in for fantasy. I said fantasy enough, didn't I?
As Denny Green would say, he is who we thought he was.
Yeah, that's definitely true. No surprises there. And I guess it was a surprise to see, I guess, a full healthy Saints receiving core to start the year, but suddenly, all it takes is 1 week and we have 2 injuries to the receiving core, Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. So Michael, I guess they're both foot injuries technically, but Michael Thomas specifically a toe. And I guess stipulated here that not the same foot as the ankle injury. And this is, I guess, the ankle injury he was dealing with in training camp.
Yeah, and probably the one that, well, I don't know which, if it's either that one, the one that was surgically repaired, or now it's both. But at least it's not. That's the good news, is that it's not the ankle. So whichever ankle it is, he had the surgically repaired ankle and
that
issues with
that cost him basically 2 full seasons, right?
Yeah, so it cost him basically 2 years. So it's not that. That's the good news. The bad news is that anytime you have a toe injury, you have to be concerned for turf toe, which sounds really innocuous, but it's actually an injury to the small ligaments in the toe itself, which can be really painful, and especially for a running back or a wide receiver that have to stop, cut, and accelerate and decelerate and do all those things. And they can be mild, moderate, or severe. And if they're moderate or severe in some cases, they can require surgery. So he's not out of the woods yet, even though he is not dealing with the same injury that has cost him the better part of the last 2 years. He still could have another bad injury, and we just don't know yet. So that's frustrating, but that's kind of where we are. Like, worry meter wise, I got him as a 3 out of 5 just because of the uncertainty and because it's another injury that he's dealing with on top of what we've already seen with him. So hopefully we get more information and it turns out to be, more mild, but it may not be.
And then I guess his teammate Jarvis Landry, now a foot injury.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you guys. Let's play a little Doc's injury games here. So whenever you hear foot injury, what's the injury that you're really hoping that it's not?
Well, we're talking with Naji, right? The Liz Frank,
yeah. High ankle sprain would be a close second, but Liz Frank for sure. So we don't know what's going on here. We just know he injured his foot. And whenever I hear foot injury and they don't give any additional descriptors, until I hear that it's not a Liz Frank injury, I'm worried. So we need to hear that before we can kind of relax a little bit. We don't have any information at this point. We got to watch practice reports, be on the lookout for updates. And he gets a 3 out of 5 on the old Wario meter as well, because it could still be a Liz Frank injury. And if it is, that's a problem.
Well, just based on what you're saying, I'm almost surprised that Landry and Thomas have the same worry factor. I would imagine, I guess it's because if you knew it was Liz Frank, it would go up further than a 3, right?
Yeah. Okay. 3.5, 4,
you're hedging the bets because it might not be that serious. So if you don't want to red alert, but I suppose, don't expect to play him next week. Like, that's something to be prepared to not have him in your lineup if you're unfortunate like me in our dynasty league where I played him.
Yeah. Yeah. And potentially for multiple weeks. And so Mr. Scamper says turf toe is the most adorable sounding, realistically scary injury ever. Rename it. Okay. Just because Mr. Scampers asked for a rename, here's the official name: metatarsophalangeal joint sprain. So that's much more medical, but it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as easy as turf toe. So that's probably why they go with turf toe instead.
He said phalanges. I just love that word.
If you want to go for the hat trick, Traquan Smith also got injured in the fourth quarter for New Orleans. He got a concussion, and he was actually doing well because everybody else was pretty much out, with the exception of Chris Olave. So prior to him leaving, he had 4 catches and 105 yards, but he's in the concussion protocol. He could be in the mix to start in week 4 versus Minnesota if he recovers and the other Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas don't. Other guys to consider: Marquez Callaway and Deontay Hardy, depending on how the whole wide receiver room shakes out. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but depending on how desperate you are, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, or Deontay Hardy some or all of them could be in play for week 4, depending on how things shake out.
Callaway did catch the touchdown at the end of the game from Winston. I know between him and Hardy, he was active. Hardy wasn't last week. So seems like Hardy was a healthy scratch, kind of viewed as, I don't think it was an injury related. Maybe it was, but I think he was very clearly viewed as, you're the 5th, 6th receiver.
Yeah.
He might be the de facto number 3, but if that's the case, it's probably because Marquez Callaway is the number 2 behind Olave. So of those names, I think, if Trayvon wasn't injured, I think you maybe would have a discussion, but I think Callaway's the guy to pick up there just because unlike Smith, he's the healthy one right now. And I think Hardy, they'd like using as a returner more than anything.
Yeah. I think it's just somebody to kind of not necessarily pick up, but just keep the guys on your radar because there's a lot of injuries out there. Bye weeks haven't hit yet, but they're coming. And we're still in the optimistic part of the season where it's like, he might miss a week or two. And then the next thing you know, your guy's going to be out for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And we've already started to see some of that, start to materialize. So it's happening.
I didn't realize Jeff played tennis either.
Do you have to play tennis to get tennis elbow?
No, that's a joke.
He's got the Andre Agassi hair, so that's something.
Oh man. B-League accent, the Agassi hair. What else do we characterize Gore for Two People as? But everything, all this discussion, this discourse could be had and found in the Going for Two Discord. And I think we're at 700 members strong. So, check out the Going for Two Discord channel. I know part of this, one of the things we have on that channel is a Doc injury channel. So if you want access to Doc and any question about any player injuries, join our Discord for free. Find the Doc's injury channel and post whatever questions. Doc will answer them all. And all the great research he does for the show, he does for everyone in the Discord. So really appreciate all the hard work you do, Doc, constantly for that, and everyone who contributes to the Going for Two Discord.
Yes, sir. Glad to have the Discord channel. Glad to help everybody as much as I can. I'm here for you guys. So that's where we're trying to stack up those wins, get to the playoffs.
I don't know if this is supposed to be a DM, but yes. So thanks, Dan, for letting us know Gallup and Schultz are inactive, and I'll hit this after the Monday Night Football intro.
Yeah.
Always producing even from.
I know. Dan is like Dan doesn't take any holidays. Like he's always working.
He's working like the football players. Next week it's Saints Vikings London 9:30 a.m. Eastern, I believe. Now, yeah, I'm not meant to post that. I assume I'm also not meant to post this either. Anyway, so we'll keep going with the injury talk. I guess there's quite a few. Actually, another running back got added in the like 2 hours since I last checked this. But I guess we'll start with. Are we really that shocked? Dalvin Cook shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Right? But, yeah.
Oh, Dalvin. So we did our devil's advocate runs early in the season, and Dalvin Cook was my pick, and this was my exact concern was both of his shoulders. He's dealing with chronic issues with labral tears, which is the cartilage that goes in the socket of the ball and socket joint of the shoulder and kind of adds extra stability. And it's not unusual to tear those. The problem is, especially as you get a little bit older, but he's been dealing with this for years. The problem is when the labrum is torn, the surgery to repair it is relatively complicated as far as requiring the time off. So he's just kind of bracing it up and gutting it out. But the torn cartilage adds to the instability of the shoulder. So because of that, you're more prone to have a shoulder dislocation, which is exactly what happened to Dalvin Cook again in week 3. So that's the bad news. The good news is that Dalvin Cook might be superhuman because this happened back in 2021. And I have to be honest, I was like, oh, this is bad. He's done. He's done for multiple weeks. He might be done for the year. Well, he came in just under that. He missed a week. And then he came back and rushed for like 200 yards. So
was that the game against the Packers?
I think so.
Yeah, it was a career high, like 280 rushing yards or something. It was insane. Like it was an amazing game. Yeah, it was a ridiculous game from him. And that's my expectation at this point until I see something different. It's like he'll probably miss a week and then come back and start doing Dalvin Cook things again. The issue is that with every dislocation, the shoulder becomes more unstable. The ligaments and the tendons and everything that holds it in place gets more loose. So you have an increased risk and frequency and severity of future dislocation. So sooner or later, the shoulder's going to dislocate and it's really going to damage something and it's going to become completely unstable and he's going to need surgery. I don't know when that's going to be, but it looks like that is not now because they braced it up and they labeled him as day-to-day, which doesn't really tell us much. But if you put a gun to my head, I would say plan for a similar course. He misses a week, which means we get a week of Alexander Madison. So do your due diligence and make sure that he's not just hanging out there on the waiver wire. And then I would expect Dalvin Cook to at least have a chance to play.
if not this week, then week 5 until we hear something different, because that's just how he seems to roll.
But then back to, and I'll stick to the script here, Dan, but going back to Naji Harris earlier, like, if you can trade Naji now, would be a good time before the injury. With Cook, he's already been injured now, but if that's something where he comes back and has a really great game, that would be a really good sell high opportunity. So don't sell him now, but once he returns from this, it seems like this isn't a severe case of the shoulder injury. So count on, again, a week out. If he comes back 2 weeks from now and has a great performance, it might be the perfect time to try and sell him for really a different running back. Or if you're deep enough at running back, maybe you can afford to just go after a high upside receiver. But yeah, it might be smart. What's Dan saying now? I guess we've lost. It
was the Pittsburgh game, is what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Yeah. 200. Well, yeah. So it wasn't a season high, because I think he had more than 205 against the Packers last year. But yeah,
Dan's taking Kyle's job as research. That he does, the unofficial, uncredited research department for Speak on It.
Yeah, that's true. But we'll continue to speak, and I need to rein it in a little. But I guess to talk more about shoulder injury and running back, it seems like Dalvin Cook was obviously suffering it. DeAndre Swift as well. Now he went into the week with an ankle injury, and I know they did this last year, where he's questionable, game time decision. They play him, and it was Jamal Williams that got the majority of the carries. Now I don't know if this was more because of the shoulder injury that kept Swift out of this week, but what do we know about DeAndre Swift right now, Doc?
Well, this is like deja vu all over again. Later in the year last year, DeAndre Swift had an acromioclavicular joint, or an AC joint injury. So he separated his shoulder, and that ended up costing him, I think it was 3 weeks or something like that. And Jamal Williams was poised and ready. People that had drafted him were waiting for their opportunity for DeAndre Swift to miss some time. And then right when he was going to ascend to starting running back, just like half of the rest of the United States, Jamal Williams got COVID. And so he ended up missing a bunch of time, and it just never happened. So it looks like it's happening again. They're already talking about that DeAndre Swift may be out past the week 6 bye, which is not great. Like, there's not like, oh, he might be okay for this week or next week. They're already talking about having him out for multiple weeks. So that is not confidence inspiring. Last year when he dealt with this injury, I don't know if it's an AC joint this time, but when he did have the shoulder injury last year, it was an AC joint, and it cost him 4 weeks. DeAndre Swift, I mean. So it might be Jamal Williams' season again if DeAndre Swift is in fact out. And he did pretty well. 20 carries, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then 2 catches on 2 targets for 20 additional yards through the air. So, same deal with all these kind of backup running backs or these late round guys, shallower league players, whatever. Just make sure somebody didn't have a bunch of issues and get impatient, and just do your due diligence. He's probably on somebody's roster, but he's not going to be 100% owned, I don't think. So just make sure he's not hanging out on the wire, and you don't want to get scooped in case he is, because he could be really valuable for at least a couple of weeks, if not longer.
I think Jamal Elios. I don't get the joke. I'm sorry.
I'll have to. Yeah, we'll have to work on that. We'll have to workshop those jokes in the in the week in between shows. Oh, there we go.
Leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns.
Jeff, stop drinking while you're commenting.
That is crazy. That. Yeah. Grammarly Jeff. So we've got Discord Dan, Grammarly Jeff, doctor discussion. If you want to keep discussing injuries, Doc.
I'm just kidding, Jeff.
There's more running back injuries, of course. What else would happen? Ankle injuries for both David Montgomery and Joe Mixon, and it seems like David Montgomery also suffering from a knee injury. So I don't know if you want to start with Mixon because it's simpler, but anywhere you want to take this.
Yeah, so let's trying to dad while typing. Well, Jeff, you're the man. So I would never disparage you for multitasking and watching the show while trying to dad at the same time. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being a great dad, and thanks for being a great boss. Okay, I think I get to keep my job now. All right, Joe Mixon. Coach says he's good to go, so I'll accept that for now. That all being said, they play on Thursday night. See if you can find a way to squeeze Samaje Perine on your roster just the same, because he looked pretty good. 9 rushes, 47 yards, and then 2 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown reception. So if for some reason it all goes kablooey with Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine looks like he could be in for some decent work. And, we just don't know how this is going to go. I'm not worried about Joe Mixon. On a worry-o-meter, I got him as a 1 out of 5. I think he's going to play. But he could have a setback. He could get injured during the game. So, it's already being set up for the chance for him to, potentially have issues as a result of this. So, this is the way to kind of get ahead of the curve, instead of waiting and then you see that Mixon gets injured during the game and now you're kind of left with empty pockets or you have to use a bunch of fab or a high waiver pick. This is the way to kind of get a high value backup on your roster. And then if you have room and nothing happens to Joe Mixon and he has a great game, then you can drop him and move on. But if not, then he's already on your roster and you added that piece for a really low cost. So that's kind of the Joe Mixon story. There's not a whole lot there as of right now.
Just a quick question about Perine. Knowing James Conner dealing with the ankle injury didn't look particularly great. I think there's one league where I've got Perine where I could, in theory, start him Thursday night in lieu of putting Conner in and run Samaje Perine and Jonathan Taylor as my 2 running backs. Is that something that you'd consider doing? Just knowing, again, unsure about Mixon, also unsure about Conner to a certain extent.
I think if Mixon's playing, I would still go Mixon over Perine. But if it gets thin now, it's like it gets to the point where it's like I just want somebody who could potentially just give me some production. If I have dealing with a bunch of injuries, I know you're a big David Montgomery guy, so I think that injury.
Yeah, I've got a few leagues where I've got to scramble there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, so that's a tough one. So, Perine's definitely an option. Like he definitely got you some, he could have saved your week. I think he ended up with like 14.1 PPR points. That's not nothing from a guy who, the touchdown really helped, but, and sometimes any kind of production, you get double digits and you're like, all right, you did your job. Now it's up to everybody else to kind of do their job and just kind of bridge for a week and you load them up and try again the next week and hope it works out. So I would not be completely opposed to that at all if you didn't have any better options. And then David Montgomery. So this one's kind of worrisome. So ankle, knee, again, they labeled him day to day. That doesn't tell us much. We don't know what kind of ankle issue he's dealing with. It could be a low ankle sprain, which could cost him anywhere from 0 to 4 weeks. If it's a high ankle sprain, we would expect him to miss a month or more. And things could get really ugly at that point. So just watch your practice reports, look for updates on that. But Khalil Herbert is just continuing to knock on the door and show that he really could be a special talent. So another one of those shallow league guys or, probably owned in a lot of leagues or rostered in a lot of leagues, but he may not be rostered in your league. And if he isn't, then you want to move to get him because he looked amazing. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but Chicago's offense has not been that great. So he rushed for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns and added another 2 catches. And he did the same thing last year. I think he was one of only 2 or 3 running backs to go over 100 yards against Tampa Bay's defense all year. And he just, did it out of nowhere.
There was a 2-game stretch. He had the Packers and the Bucks and torched them both on the ground. That was weird.
He's a talented guy. He's a really talented guy. And if there's any way that you can get him on your roster, I would try really hard to do that.
Now, and here's an interesting thing about just the Bears running, especially, and I guess this isn't probably not so surprising of a stat considering their total number of pass attempts are so low, but there are currently, 4 teams in the NFL that have not thrown a pass inside the opponent's 5-yard line. The Bears, well, they haven't thrown it. They've run it 7 times inside the 5. So clearly that's where they're defaulting to. So that's going to be a lot of goal line opportunities for whoever the running back is. One of those teams is the Cowboys, who have only played 2 games. Another one of those teams is the Seahawks, and they haven't even been inside the opponent's 5-yard line yet at all this year. So that's why they haven't thrown there. So it's like the Bears are getting again, seven rushing opportunities inside the 5-yard line through 3 games. So they're getting into good scoring areas. So that'll really be advantageous again to whoever the main goal line back is. So Herbert really he might have top 15, top 12 upside if he's there and Montgomery's not. And I was hearing this on a podcast today. Treston Ebner is probably going to impact Herbert's workload less than Herbert impacted Montgomery's workload. if they have confidence in that much Herbert to take away from Montgomery, they probably don't have that same confidence in a 7th round rookie pick they just made this year, who really hasn't shown anything on the NFL field yet. So it's one where, like, up to this point, it's almost been like a 60-40 split. Now it's probably going to be like an 80-20 split, if not greater.
Yeah, and I know they like Ebner. I want to give credit to the person who's been kind of preaching, singing his praises. But Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros was talking about Tristan Ebner, and that's how I kind of first started hearing his name, given that he was such a late round pick, or if he was undrafted, whoever he was. But he kind of viewed him as more of like the pass catching back in that offense, which I don't know how much pass catching there's going to be with Justin Fields at quarterback, but I think that's where he kind of fits in. So you have Khalil Herbert maybe getting a few receptions, but doing a lot of damage on the ground. And then Ebner probably mixing in as kind of the third down of the receiving back. So they both could have some value. But I think that's probably how it's going to shake out. And, you know, the amount of carries that you see Herbert getting, that really tells you something about what they think about him, you know, going forward. Like 20 rushes, 22 touches overall. Like that's a really good workload.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess to continue to talk about the ankle injuries, we're going away from, I think we've got all the running backs covered and injured this week. There's probably another one we missed, of course. The running backs always get hurt, but Mac Jones looking like that seems like it's being reported as a high ankle sprain. So I'm sure we can expect some time missed for Jones, a trip to the IR, in fact. But yeah, what do we know about Mac Jones so far? Has anything been confirmed, Doc?
Yeah, so with Mac Jones, this is the part that's really worrying me, as if a high ankle sprain wasn't bad enough. They actually called it a severe high ankle sprain, which is kind of like saying a severe gunshot wound to the chest. Like, it's already bad. Like, how much worse can it be? You know, you have multiple sets of ligaments in the ankle and the lower leg that are all damaged, and then you have all the tissue in between that area that's damaged, and that's what a high ankle sprain is. So it's already pretty severe. So the thing with that is, as you alluded to, I expect him to be out for multiple weeks, maybe as many as 6 weeks or more. The only silver lining is that he's not really known for his mobility. So it's not something like a Russell Wilson when he had a high ankle sprain, or, you know, if God forbid, like Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson or somebody like that were to have a high ankle sprain, that would probably hamper them a lot more because of their mobility and their rushing upside. But a Michael Thomas-esque course with surgery and things like that is not out of the question at this point. So that's really kind of scary, especially if you're depending on Mac Jones in a super flex league or something like that. For whatever it's worth, Brian Hoyer is the backup and looks like he's going to be the guy for now. I don't know how much that really moves the needle for people, but in super flex leagues and 2 quarterback leagues, any starting quarterback has value. So that's, you know, something to consider. But, you know, for Mac Jones right now, I got him as a worry on the worryometer. I got a 3 out of 5, and it could get worse from there. So it's pretty bad.
And I guess, yeah, to Brian's credit, he heard it dancing in the end zone, actually, with his mac and cheese dance.
Yeah. Well, something to be said for Barry Sanders just handing the ball to the referee, right? I don't think he ever got hurt.
Other than the Lambeau leap, that's my favorite celebration. It's the only thing I like about the Lions. But I guess, Gladys, I didn't give you a chance to chime in on all the running back talk, whether it was with the Bengals or the Lions or the Bears. But did you want to mention anything about any running backs there?
No, we're good. You guys covered it all.
Got it all. Next, Gladys, do you want to hit the rest of the pass catchers, or you want to hit the pass throwers?
Pass throwers.
Okay. So would you prefer the holdover from last week, another superhuman human being, Justin Herbert, or you want to go, is it 2 a time? What was he was your pick last week for your
I know.
No, we're not going to call this the GLT jinx, but he was your pick for the early victory lap, and apparently he hurt his ankle and his back while he was taking that victory lap with you.
Well, okay. Did he hurt his ankle and his back, or did he hurt his head? And then they said he hurt his back.
That is the question, isn't it? That's a really good question. So this is what they said. They said that he hurt his back, and initially he hurt his back, and he got sacked, and his back locked up on him, which can happen. And that's why he was stumbling back to the sidelines after the sack. So it wasn't actually a head injury, and he was woozy. He was stumbling because he couldn't walk because his back locked up on him. So because of that, as of right now, the Dolphins insist that he did not have a concussion and he is not in the concussion protocol. But the NFL is investigating whether or not that's actually the case. And if they find out that he does have a concussion, they're going to have some problems down there in South Beach. So
it's not like the Dolphins have been fined or lost draft picks at all this year yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to play well, especially with the whole like Tom Brady in the offseason tampering stuff. That is not going to be a good time.
Yeah.
So I hope they're telling the truth, because if they're not, I think they're going to be in some trouble. But as of right now, they say he's not in the concussion protocol, doesn't have a concussion. It's a back injury. And it sounds like he didn't break anything, muscle strain.
Did you see the game? Did you see the hit?
I didn't see it, but I read a bunch about it. And
it makes sense to you?
It does. It makes sense. But, they could also be disingenuous about it. But I feel like the risk of them not telling the truth would be really high. And they have independent neurologists for the NFL game. So I think it makes sense to me. I feel like it's probably true. And with him, all we're going to have to do is watch the practice reports. And my guess is he's going to be out there in week 4 unless things really go south during the week. The only thing that
Thursday night game too, right? They play Thursday. They play the Bengals.
The Bengals versus. Is it the
Miami?
Dolphins?
It is. I remember thinking it was Tua versus Burrow. Yeah, I think that is the short week.
So short turnaround there. The only thing I would add is super flex leagues. Just give Teddy Bridgewater a look if you need a quarterback. He's not going to set the world on fire, but leagues like Scott Fishbowl where you get extra points for efficiency. He is a pretty efficient quarterback as far as completion percentage, if nothing else. So that's not nothing.
I guess you'd rather pick up Hoyer, thinking Hoyer is more likely to start. You'd prioritize Brian Hoyer over Teddy Bridgewater.
If you're looking for a guy who's going to play, yeah. If you're just looking for a guy who could, because the thing is, in the Scott Fishbowl, if you throw a guy out there and he doesn't do well, you could get some really significant negative points. In most other leagues, that's not a worry.
But I wonder, because now this is part of my thinking too. Is Tua's back/concussion injury entirely dependent on how bad Bridgewater looked on the couple of snaps he had just before half? Because he didn't complete either pass, and then like, oh, you know what? No, you don't have a concussion, Tua. If Bridgewater looked okay, they might have been like, what? It is a concussion. And so that might also be a player maybe not worth playing in a Scott Fishbowl, to be fair, though. Like just on how, it was, again, he came in cold. And if he were to have to actually practice through the week and get reps, I'm sure he'd look better. He's been a starter before, but that definitely looked discouraging. And the cynical me, which Dan's definitely not cynical with his line here. I'm saying I'm sure the Dolphins wouldn't lie. Definitely, that an NFL football team that's based purely on competition and winning would not do anything like lie for competitive advantage. But the cynical me was like, man, if Bridgewater played better with this, would they have been like, yeah, it was a concussion, we're going to hold him out. But we'll see.
We'll never know.
But just to talk about, I guess, that Thursday night game coming up, there's another player with a concussion issue, potentially, T. Higgins. Now, suffered the concussion week 1, came back, and he played last week. But I guess, did he re-injure? Like, did he re-suffer a concussion here in week 3?
I don't think so. I think what they're saying is it's a toe or it's a foot injury, something like that. So same deal. It's like we don't really know what the story is. It's kind of the same as Jarvis Landry. Who had the toe injury? Michael Thomas. Yeah. So, we don't know. We don't know what it's going to end up being. This is one that's strictly just like shoulder shrug, watch a practice reports, and let's see what happens. It could be nothing. It could be somebody stepped on his foot, or it could be something all the way up to turf toe or something else. But since we got a short turnaround, the good news is we're going to find out something sooner rather than later. So we won't have to wait long. And I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but Tyler Boyd looked pretty good, even with all 3 of those guys out there.
Yeah,
my most rostered player in fantasy, and I didn't start him in nearly enough lineups. I mean, maybe in 3 out of 9. Maybe couple of leagues though, where it's kind of key to have him in there. He did score a lot of points.
All
right, Gladys, how many leagues are you in? Kyle's in like 9 leagues. How many leagues are you in?
Oh, it's more than 9.
Like not best ball, like just 9, like set your lineup leagues.
Oh yeah, it's more than
9.
Oh, it's more than that. You're in 9?
You're misinterpreting. That's Gladys's number.
I got you. You're not in 9 leagues. You had him in 9 leagues.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I had Boyd in as many leagues as Gladys has leagues. I'm in 23 leagues.
Wow.
Wow.
That is
ridiculous. 23 leagues that you have to set a lineup?
Yep. I am a little ridiculous, to be fair. So that makes
sense. Impressive. That's dedication.
Yeah.
But I guess, dedication. I mean, we're dedicated to talking injuries, so we still got a few more to do. So let's rapid fire get through them. I guess there's like 4 receivers to touch on. So
wait.
Sorry,
Justin Herbert.
Oh yeah, right. I wasn't gonna forget. He was next.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm the one that's
Justin Herbert is another one who is vying for the Superhuman award because he tore his rib cartilage, and apparently this is amazing to me. The Chargers doctors were begging him not to play. And Justin Herbert said, you know what? Screw that. I'm playing. Numb it up. Give me a flak jack, and I'm going out there. And even though they got their heads kicked in by the Jaguars, he actually did pretty decent. 45 throws, completed 25 of them, almost 300 yards, and a touchdown. So not great, but definitely not terrible. And I would expect more of the same from him in the near term. Like if he was able to play this week, I think he's just, like we talked about last week, I don't think he's going to run much, but I think he's going to be able to go out there and gut it out and throw. And it's just amazing. Like how painful like a rib cartilage injury is. I would not have been shocked at all if he missed a week or 2. But he went out there and he did it. So, I mean, it's really impressive.
And this is, sorry, go ahead, Gladys. Sorry.
No, I wasn't going to say. Go.
Oh, okay. I interrupt everyone all the time, so I just assume I'm always interrupting somebody. But I guess back to just like the comment on Jameis Winston, this isn't going to affect his throwing motion. It's just more about pain tolerance. Like it seems like he can still throw the football well, and so still have maybe not quite the usual upside he normally has. So I wonder, the takeaway might be less about managed leagues and more. You don't play him in DFS until it seems like he's, maybe a month from now when he's fully healthy, but in managed leagues, you're probably still playing him in your lineup.
Yeah, I think you're still playing him. And the thing is, like, pain tolerance kind of like gets put into a wastebasket of like, oh, it's just a pain tolerance issue. Like if somebody hits you in the leg with a baseball bat, like that's a pain tolerance issue too. But that's a pretty big pain tolerance issue. Like when you injure your ribs, it doesn't just affect you like throwing or moving. Like it affects you when you breathe. Or if you sneeze, God forbid. You
breathe
like,
often, don't you?
Keep all the pepper away from Justin Herbert. Like it's really bad. It's like when you feel it when you sleep, if you roll on it, whatever. Like if you move, if you twist, if you go from a laying down position to a seated position, any type of movement at all, like your rib cage is meant to move, just like the rest of your skeleton. And anytime you move it, it hurts. So I can't imagine him not only being able to tolerate that pain, but being able to tolerate playing in a football game, playing the whole game and doing pretty well. It's just amazing to me. Like these guys, football players never cease to amaze me with the levels that they are able to push their bodies to overcome whatever physical ailments they have. So, hats off to him for doing it. It's really amazing.
But yeah, let's rapid fire these wide receivers.
We'll
go with the old guys. Julio Jones.
Okay. So Julio Jones found out that he injured his PCL. He missed week 2 and week 3. Allegedly, he'll be back week 4. I'm not so sure about that. Fingers crossed, but maybe not. Just watch the practice reports and just keep in mind a setback is still possible between now and week 4. So I'm still not going to believe it until I see him out there. Keeping with the LA Chargers, Keenan Allen missed weeks 2 and 3. Allegedly, he has a chance to be back for week 4, so things are looking up there. But again, has a risk of re-injury even if he does come back. But I think he'll help the Chargers and Justin Herbert if he's able to get back out there. Sadder news, Jalen Guyton, torn ACL, out for the remainder of 2022. So just when it looked like he might kind of find a way to get in there and get involved, that dream is done. He's out for the year. DeAndre Carter continues to kind of climb up the depth chart as these guys continue to get injured. So, he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I know he's been picked up in some leagues and he's been dropped, but, he still could have some value. Jalen Waddle showed up on the injury report after missing practice on Monday with a groin injury. I don't know what's going on here. It's just something we got to watch your practice reports on. He looked good in week 3. There is a concern for him being out, even if it's only a mild or a grade 1 injury, because they're playing on Thursday night. Let's see. We talked about Jones. AJ Green, bone bruise in the knee. So misnomer with a bone bruise, not the same thing as a soft tissue bruise. A bone bruise is actually an incomplete break of the bone, which is way worse than a soft tissue bruise, and they can really be slow to heal. I expect him to be out this week, and it could be multiple additional weeks. This is the same thing that Zach Wilson is dealing with in addition to all the other injuries that he had with his MCL and his meniscus injury, and that may still be hampering him, and it's been a month. So I would not be surprised if AJ Green missed this week and potentially multiple weeks. One of the questions that we got on the Discord was on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he had an ankle injury, was able to play through it and was productive. 6 catches on 9 targets, 73 yards. They said he looked a little bit slower after the injury. Not really super surprising. I don't think he's really in danger of missing any time here, but just watch your practice reports and make sure it doesn't go from bad to worse. And then the only other guys we have left are the guys that are playing tonight. Wandale, Robinson, Kadarius Toney, Dalton Schultz. So we can talk about them like as we kind of are heading into our preview. So we know Schultz is out. We know Kadarius Toney is out, and we know Michael Gallup is out. So that's just another nail in the coffin of the Cowboys are definitely honorary degrees from the Pete Carroll School of Medicine, because it was like Gallup was going to play and Dak Prescott is going to play next week. You can't really trust these guys. You gotta see it first. I think Gallup's got a decent chance to potentially get out there next week. But that was always the story. It was always going to be 3-4 weeks, something like that. And then Dak Prescott, same deal. I think he's still looking at 4 to 6 weeks, kind of minimum. And next week, I think it'll only be 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks. So he's not quite there yet. And, that's kind of where we stand. I don't know about, I don't know if you guys saw any updates on Wandale, if he's playing or not. He was doubtful coming in. So I'll kind of look at that while you guys do the preview and see.
Excellent as always, Doc.
That's my favorite part of the whole night, always. Second to the Dan impression. Scene is like my favorite part. And scene.
Favorite
Go
scene.
ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
That's okay. No, but it's a end scene, but it's never the end of the episode, of course.
No.
And before we get into the Monday night preview, we're going to talk about No House Advantage, a sponsor we have at Going for Two. So No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em style contests versus other people for your shot at winning $150,000 or more. Download the app and use our promo code GF2, capital G, capital F, and the number 2, 3 digits. Keep it simple here at Going for Two. And with that promo code Going for Two, you get a deposit match of up to $25. So you put in $25, they will match that and give you an additional $25 to use. And you can use that money to select your player props. You can earn points with the correct picks and eventually climb the ladder board for your shot to win the big money. Yeah. You can test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all of your picks. So you can bet up to 5 player props or individual matchups across every sport, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, NASCAR. Well, and Jeff, do we have a CFL promo in here? Sorry, I just needed another Dan impersonation since Gladys loves them so much. Again, the promo code is Going for Two, and use it at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app today. Again, nohouseadvantage.com, that promo code GF2 for a deposit match up to $25. And yeah, sadly, Dan isn't here to see the, I guess I'll plug also our, I'll plug exactly. That's what I'm about to do. I'll plug the gear, Going for Two hats, shirts as well, goingfor2.com/store or ViridianGlobal.com if you want to go to them directly. I also, I know one of the things Viridian Global does some charity shirts as well. I'm wearing the Brighter Skies charity shirt that they had. So fundraiser that they did. I would say, I think it's appropriate for this week, especially since the Giants have definitely brighter skies than usual. Sitting currently as one of the only 3 undefeated teams in the NFL. Who'd have thought that? The Dolphins, the Eagles, and the Giants as the 3 undefeated teams. Like everyone, exactly how we planned it all. But the Giants since they are undefeated, are the favorites tonight against the Cowboys by 1 point. And the implied total prediction is 39.5, originally started at 40.5. And so, so I guess Gallup, Dak Prescott, Schultz, anything about time frame for those players? I don't know. I'm not sure if we know. But Doc, have you heard anything about or seen anything about Wandale?
Wandale's out. So
Okay.
just to recap, Wandale Robinson is out. Gallup is out. Schultz is out, and Kadarius Toney is out.
Nice. Hey, Kyle, did you see the trade question?
Oh yeah. Okay. You know what? Let's do that first, and then we'll get to the good point, Gladys. You see, just as great a host as I am. San is asking, do I trade Nick Chubb and AJ Brown for Jamar Chase and Javonte Williams? This is a big trade. Wow. Anyone have any instinctive thoughts on this?
I don't think I would, but because I mean, it's kind of like an even trade almost. I mean, I don't know why you would do it. So I guess who else is on his roster that he feels that he needs? Chase and Javonte Williams, but he's going. So Chubb supersedes Javonte probably because Javonte is the number 2 if David Montgomery Swift comes back, right? Javonte's only in there.
Not Jamal Williams, Javonte Williams, Denver.
From Denver?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do it. No.
Oh, you'd be more likely to do it for Jamal Williams?
Yeah. Same question, dynasty or redraft?
Well, and that's the thing. I think if this is dynasty, I think it's without a doubt. Because as much as I love Nick Chubb, I think in dynasty, he's the least valuable piece of this trade. And if you can swing Chubb being the least valuable piece to get Jamar Chase, who I view as the most valuable piece, I would do this in dynasty very easily. Yeah. I would imagine you probably can't get this done in dynasty. The Jamar Chase manager isn't getting older at running back with Williams and then downgrading from Chase to Brown, although Brown is doing really well. I don't see a dynasty manager doing that. So my interpretation was instinctively this is a redraft trade, but yeah, I think in redraft, I think it's really close because as Gladys says, I think in redraft, I would agree with you, Gladys. It is a downgrade from Chubb to Williams, just in terms of production right now. The Broncos, funny, as we all expected, we have more confidence in the Browns offense right now than the Broncos offense as we drew it up, right? The NFL knows everything, but man, Chubb's the RB1 right now. And I think it's touchdowns, but I think we also know his ability he can kind of efficiently score touchdowns anyway. AJ Brown's doing pretty spectacular. So I think in redraft, I agree with Gladys. There's not much reason to do this other than I really want Jamar Chase on my team. I'm willing to spend to get him. I know I've got 14 dynasty leagues and I don't have a single share of Jamar Chase. So I know I really want him specifically in dynasty. So I'd be willing to overspend to get him in specific formats, but I could see someone saying, I want Chase on my team and I'll do whatever it takes to get him. I'm fine making this trade for that. But like Gladys said, there's not really a need to do it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Doc, any thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are, you know what I'm going to say. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And just looking at it, it's not a hell yes for me. Like I want pieces of the Eagles offense. I think Nick Chubb is doing spectacularly. I don't necessarily see him falling off unless he gets hurt, which could happen to anyone. So, Javonte Williams, he's still a question mark. Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 2028? We don't know. So, because of that, it's not a hell yes. So it's a no.
Man, I mean, to be fair, if we're still talking about is Javonte Williams going to break out in 2028, that almost might be a good thing for him. Man, he's still going at this point. That's crazy. Yeah, I guess Dan says, so as a Giants fan, even if we lose, we still have the same record as Dallas. I'll take it. So yeah, that is, as we get to our game preview, as mentioned, 39.5 for the game prediction on Underdog and the Giants favored by 1 point. So
nice.
Dan's note for the game is this is game 2 out of game 3 in a row that the Giants play at home. So they go Panthers, Cowboys, Browns at home. It's funny. The Browns do seem like the toughest matchup there. Again, as we predicted, Jacoby Brissett leading the Browns to victory constantly. Frankly, they're an onside kick from the Jets doing really and a really great Jets comeback of being 3-0 and being that other undefeated team. So I suppose kudos to the Browns for. I don't think any of us would have expected them to have a winning record at this point.
Yeah.
Not I, certainly.
Not I.
All right, Gladys, lead us off. What are you taking here?
I think I should probably go after you because aren't you 3-0 Like the man who doesn't want to pick has
I don't
not
know.
missed a
Have
pick
you
yet.
guys checked the standings? How am I doing?
Oh,
No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
Well,
I checked.
Okay, well, if we want, we'll update the standings. But yeah, so far Doc has
Not missed
it's
a pick.
weird. Last week, one of our picks was the higher lower on the Bills game at 48, and it was a 41-7 game, so it was exactly 48. So we technically
They
tied.
screwed us on that, by the way, because I had the under, and some of the other lines had 48.5. So it's like I was pretty chapped about that.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something where we can count that as a win because no one got it wrong if you really want to. But based on the standings right now, Doc is 8-0-1. So 8
God.
correct, 0 incorrect, and then the 1 tie. So yeah, he's almost perfect. Fabulous Doc. Dan's at 5-3-1. I'm at 4-4-1. Gladys at 2-6-1. So we're getting there. We're catching up, but Doc just keeps getting them right. So the chase is on all year, supposedly.
Yeah.
The sun, you know what they say, the sun shines on Kyle Phillips twice a day. Little inside joke for everybody that watched last week.
I was gonna wonder if we were gonna ever mention him again.
So I'm going 39.5.
Well, I've kind of already decided mine. And actually what we can do is before we do anything else, we'll just read Dan's off because he's already chosen. He's taking the Giants as 1-point favorites, and he's taking the higher. Even though he said he actually expects it'll be the Cowboys and lower. So I don't know if that helps anyone at home, but Dan's taking the Giants and higher.
Oh, yeah.
I'm taking
higher, Kyle.
I think in solidarity with Dan, and just for the fun chaos of as if the Giants will be 3-0, that's hilarious. I'm going to go with the Giants. It also does play into my prop later, and I kind of correlating the bets, all three of my bets with that. But I'm taking the Giants, and I'm taking lower, thinking that for both of these teams, I think their defenses have been more impressive than their offenses. So even though it's already it's sub 40 point for the prediction on Underdog, I'm still going lower. I don't think that either will get to 40 points. So I'll take the lower.
I'll take the higher, and just to be different, I will take Dallas.
Okay.
Nice.
And again, they're at the point where they're practically pick'ems anyway. 1-point favorites. So you're basically just picking the winner when it comes to 1 point, really. Doc, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to I can't believe that I'm going to pick the Giants, but I'm picking the Giants. And there's just something about this game. I feel like maybe it's the spirit of Discord Dan has gotten a hold of me. I don't know. But I like the Giants, and I like the lower. So that's what I'm taking.
I thought you were gonna go crazy and take the higher, but it's funny because you've taken the lower on all 4 games we've done so far.
Well, big ups to shout out to Izzy Ortiz who showed me the light as far as taking the lower. So if I don't have a really strong feeling about the higher, then I kind of default to the lower. And
it's funny.
It's been working out so far.
It didn't work for me week 1. I was like, oh yeah, the Broncos, they'll smash. There'll be so many points. Geno Smith will smash too. He's such easy. He's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson, clearly. I mean, as we've shown this year so far. But since then, I've gone the lower in 3 straight games. So hopefully that's the right play for me anyway. But yes, so we're talking about all these predictions, these hires and lowers. You too can join in on the action at Underdog. We have another promo code for Underdog as well. GF2, the same promo code, keeping it consistent, out of boy Jeff, and to get 100% deposit match of up to $100. So again, put in $100, they'll match that and give you an additional $100. Using the promo code GF2 when you sign up for Underdog. So those were the picks for the game. Now I guess we can do the prop pick. So who wants to? I guess we'll share Dan's prop pick again. Went with the Giants spirit. He took Saquon Barkley higher than 23.5 receiving yards. I know he kind of as soon as he posted things, that's the one I'm taking. So he wanted to smash that, and not let any of us take it. So.
Well, as if there's a rule that if somebody takes something that you can't take it.
There clearly isn't, because we both had the Diggs over line last week.
Exactly. So it's like, I'm going to get in quick so nobody else can have it. It's like, listen, it's not like if you go to the sports book and you're like, hey, I want to make this bet. They're like, oh, sorry, the guy that was in the line in front of you did, so now you can't. So to dovetail off of that, I also am going to take Saquon Barkley and the higher on the receiving yards. And, I usually don't have much of a rationale for this, but I feel like if the Giants are going to win this game, it's going to be through Saquon Barkley and maybe to a lesser degree, Sterling Shepard. But with the other receivers out, I think Saquon Barkley, he's been a beast this year. I really was super high on him coming into this year. And, we'll just see if he can get some yards through the through the air as well as on the ground. But I just have a feeling that the ground rushing yards, it's pretty high. It's like 77.5 or something like that. And the combine is over 100, but the receiving, I don't know. I feel like he can definitely catch, and there's definitely a way that he can get there. And Dallas's defense has been good. So if they run it through Saquon, I like my chances. So there you go.
Well, it's funny because 3/4 of the panel here has gone with running back receiving or receptions of some sort. So, Dan and Doc both going with Barkley receiving yards over, and you two can pick those again on underdog. Gladys, you've got a running back as well within the pass catching role.
Tony Pollard, 2.5 receptions over.
Yes.
I really like that pick.
Receptions. So that just not the yards, but the catches themselves. But
right.
And yeah, your reasoning behind it.
Pollard he's been targeted 7 times and 5 times, I believe. And that was the 7 times was with Rush.
Cooper Rush.
Yeah, thank you. Why did I want to Cooper Kupp? Yeah, that's why I always get confused. It's Cooper's a weird name. Like not many people have it.
For some reason the name doesn't just rush to you. It's not so obvious.
Oh, so nice.
Why?
That's
why this man is a professional right
here. So I believe in this game. Do you know Micah Parsons has 4 sacks? He has more sacks than the Jets' entire team right now. So I know. And that Dallas is, anyway, I think he's going to get 2.5 receptions. Dallas is defensive. That's why I can't believe you guys went with the Giants run game, because that front line's nasty.
Well, and I think to the credit on Dan and Doc, they're going with Barkley on the receiving yards, right? Like thinking that they'll need to dump off so much rather than go for his rushing yards. So I do like that play. And to a certain extent with you guys, the Giants defense has been impressive too. So maybe needing to dump off to running backs. I think, is Kayvon Thibodeau going to be active for his first career game? If so, that should really help the Giants pass rush. You want the running back dump off numbers, really. So I kind of like everyone playing with the receiving yards for the running backs, or the passing game for the running backs.
What was yours?
Well, mine, I'm going to go with something we kind of hinted at last week, because you can do the individual props, like just these lines, as Doc and Dan, they think Barkley's going to go over that 23.5 receiving yards. Gladys thinks Pollard's going to catch at least 3 passes.
Not over.
Higher,
lower, not over under.
What's the higher, lower on number of times we'll mess up? But I ramble enough that it has to be higher for most anyway. I'm just going to be talking so much. But I'm going to go with the not just an individual line. I'm going with the rivals. So another thing Underdog does, you get compare between 2 players and pick one or the other. There might be a stipulation with giving an extra player, one player like an extra heads up with yards or catches or whatever the stat is. So I was kind of like just looking through all the numbers. Both quarterbacks are pretty low in the passing yards. 210.5 for Cooper Rush, 208.5 for Daniel Jones as the prediction lines. And I kind of looked into, okay, what have they done so far? I mean, Cooper Rush, it's easy. He's got 2 career starts. He's kind of, his first career start, he had 325 passing yards. And then even last week, 235. So he's gone over both times. And it kind of, okay, I feel confident in that. The Giants are a good defense, though. So what else is there? Daniel Jones, they've won 2 games this year, and he hasn't hit 200 passing yards in either of those 2 wins. So back to what I was saying earlier, I'm going to correlate my bets thinking the Giants are going to win a 3rd straight game with Jones going under 200 passing yards. Now, I'm not taking Jones on the under because I want to kind of combine those in case, okay, maybe Jones does have a good game and, maybe Cooper Rush doesn't quite hit the 210, but Jones still has a bad game. And it makes this pick as a rivals pick, I think makes sense. So I'm going with Cooper Rush with more passing yards than Daniel Jones, and Underdog is giving Daniel Jones 4.5 passing yards. So for me to get this correct, Cooper Rush has to have 5 more passing yards than Daniel Jones, or obviously more than that. So I kind of felt more confident than that than just going with Cooper Rush's yards. Again, in case, maybe he doesn't hit the 210, maybe he has a bad game. But if Daniel Jones also has a bad game, he might still be able to get 5 more passing yards than Jones. So I'm going with the rivals pick this week and see if that works out. I know that we hinted at last week with, are we taking Stephon Diggs over Kyle Phillips at the 55 yards, which, I mean, Diggs smashed him. So it would have made sense too, to whether it was just Diggs over. I'm not feeling as confident as it was last week with like Diggs flat out yards, because that was just seemingly so low. And while this does seem low for Rush, I just again felt more confident adding in the Daniel Jones wrinkle. So I'm going with the Rivals.
Is this our first Rivals official
Yep.
Rivals pick?
Yeah, I believe so. So I also
Nice.
thought, okay, you know what? This is a good chance to kind of show that possibility, and we haven't done it yet. So I'm going to take the plunge this week on it.
I like that. That's bold.
I know Dan had mentioned he was really interested in the Sterling Shepard over Noah Brown Rivals for catches. I think it was Brown had one more catch. Now, if Gallup was active, I think that would be really intriguing to go, like thinking Shepard's probably going to catch at least one more pass than Brown. No Gallup. I mean, Brown's been the leading target so far for the Cowboys this year, so that's why that one's a little scary. That's why I kind of just wanted to stay away from the Cowboys. Like, actually, the only like receiving lines I considered was Sterling Shepard, maybe going over on some of his 4 catches, 44.5 yards, 10.25 fantasy points. Like those were intriguing, but again, I thought let's just go with the quarterbacks.
I like it. I like the Rivals. I also think if Dan would have picked that Noah Brown and Sterling Shepard one, he would have ate it like he ate it on like Dalvin Cook prop that he had last week, where he thought that he missed it by a half because he mistook carries for yards. He's like, oh, he had 17 carries. Oh, no. He had 17 yards.
Yeah.
You're a mile away, my friend.
Yeah, I Kirk Cousins actually had more yards than Dalvin Cook rushing. So I smashed my pick.
That was a great call. That was a great call. I really like that one.
And it's funny because like looking at they had Cooper Rush at 2.5 rushing yards. And so at first I thought, okay, that one, he didn't hit that in either of his 2 starts. He had 2 rushing yards exactly in both starts. So the underdog really smart with that one. So I didn't want to tempt fate thinking this is the game he's going to go over again. Good Giants defense. So thought the passing yards
entice you with those low numbers. And it's like, nope.
It's tempting. I thought that was kind of the play last week. Okay, 4.5. It's the lowest number I could find. I mean, Dan did that week 1. Will Disley, right? 11.5 yards, the lowest number he could find. Good to take it over in one
first
play.
Drive,
it's done.
Boom.
I was listening to Underdog podcasts. I don't know which one of their podcasts, and he specifically said, week 4 on, our numbers are going to go higher. So they know that their numbers were really low, and they're going to start raising them.
so this is okay. Get your props in now, folks. This is
exactly
right.
Get your deposit match now. Going for 2.
Yeah.
Get your deposit match now.
Get it in.
Get
Get going.
on the lowest starting next week.
Pick Barkley receiving yards, Pollard receptions.
All of it.
I say go with the Rush over Jones for passing yards on the Rivals. I guess are we saying go Giants just for Dan?
I think we have to. I think we have to say go Giants.
Go Big Blue. I don't know. That sounds like an awful impersonation. That sounds like more like
sometimes it comes and goes, but you gotta keep working on it.
Consistency.
I
need to just run more routes like Kenny Golladay. Right? Just got to keep going to work.
That's it.
It's funny how they didn't have any Kenny Golladay lines.
I know, with all these that's injuries. The thing. Like, what if we actually see some life from Kenny Golladay? Is that even possible? But it's like I feel like if he doesn't produce at this point, like the Giants might do something crazy and cut him. I mean, who knows? Like anything's possible. But like everybody else is out, and it's Sterling Shepard and not a whole heck of a lot else. Richie James and the tight ends.
David Sills.
This is his chance to finally do something. I don't know. We'll see. But it is interesting that he wasn't even a thought. They were like, nope, no line. We're not putting it out there.
Yeah, I think the problem with Golladay is they can't really cut him this year because it'll actually cost them money. It'll cost like an extra $10 million just to cut him this year because of his guarantees. Next year they can cut him and save money. So it's unfortunately for them they almost have to eat it unless they can find a trade partner. Yeah. They kind of have to just. Yeah, I guess even if they find a trade partner, they might have to eat some of that dead cap. So he's kind of just stuck there doing whatever, and then next year they can actually deal with it. But yeah, I don't really think they have a choice but to continue to employ him to run 2 routes a game.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, game's about to start. Yep. Take us home, Kyle.
For sure. So again, we got you get sponsors with No House Advantage and Underdog. Use the promo code going for 2 on both to get deposit matches. We got the Giants Cowboys game about to kick off. Of course, we'll be back next week with the another divisional game, Rams at 49ers.
Nice. That'll be fun.
Repeat of the NFC Championship game last year. So it should be definitely exciting. We get to see. It's going to be our first game of Trey Lance. Never mind, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. Wonder if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, John Watford. No, we'll see. Boy. Stafford looks fine for now. But as always, continue to come back every Monday. Doc will give his injury updates. The rest of us try and keep up and do as best we can fantasy wise. But
guys, if we helped you out in any way, if you like this in any way, give us a like. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for everybody sending comments on the Discord. Really appreciate it. Hope we helped you out. Look for the injury follow-up report on Twitter tomorrow at TFS Doc. And if you're into injury analysis and you want to get better at it, I do have a book out. It's called Injuries Suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to, where we talk about all these injuries and more, and hopefully try to make you less reliant on injury analysts to manage your teams. Like when these things happen, you'll know what to do. You won't have to wait for anybody. So that's available for Amazon, available on Amazon, e-version and paperback. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Gladys, Kyle, and of course, Discord Dan in absentia. But yeah, thanks for supporting the show, everybody. And really appreciate it. Get in the Discord, drop a like, subscribe, going for 2, lots of great shows throughout the week. And yeah, thanks for everything.
Absolutely. Speak on it. And the fantasy cheat sheet tomorrow night, as always, the Armchair Show Wednesday, Dynasty Gambit Thursday. And then, yeah, just more like 2 shows a week for Friday, Saturday, the Sunday morning show as well. We're always helping out. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter. Doc already mentioned his handle at TFS Doc, the fantasy sports doc, if you need to remember. Gladys is at Gladys L. Tyler, and I'm at Senra Says. Any final words, Gladys, for the listeners?
No, thanks guys for joining us. We'll see you next Monday.
Yeah,
Dan will be here, so he'll get that.
He'll
make up for not being here.
Dan's always here, even when he's not here.
That's true. With us in the chat, with us in the show sheet spirit. And of course, we'll be back next week for the Monday Night Conversion.